shoes and walk among the groups of two. It's not ideal, it's just how we feel. It's a shame we're easily amused. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Cast a stone and get a hardcore view. Catchphrase of the day is that it's true. There's no coffee talk and only one way to please. It's a shame what you do moves me. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Zeta Perspective right here on Rebellious Ufology. I'm so happy to see you and to welcome you on today's show on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And we're now also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spreaker, and Anchor FM. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I have a morning show right here on Rebellious Ufology that I'd love for you all to check out. Every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, I give you the UFO Podcast daily lineup where I tell you who's on that day, what time they'll be on, and what they'll be talking about. And if you like what you see here today, consider joining the rebellion by hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring the bell so you'll get notifications of all of our videos. You can also follow me on Twitter at Rebellious UFO and Instagram at Rebellious Ufology. Also, we are a show run completely on donations, which can be made on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description down below, and I always appreciate any help you can give. So on this show, the Zeta Perspective, we'll be talking about all things with regards to experiencers. So whether you consider yourself an experiencer, a contactee, or an abductee, or even if you're just curious as to what it's all about, this is the place for you. We have Paul Hampton and Cyan joining us. They're both lifelong experiencers and have weekly, if not daily, ongoing contact with the Zetas. According to their website, The Zeta Connection, and there is a link in the description down below, they state, the Zetas are aware that they are misunderstood and have been misrepresented over the years. They'd encourage a person to take the time to reevaluate what they think they know and become acquainted with the information they have given and proven themselves. And that's exactly what we're here to do in this show. Look at the information and examine it from all perspectives to see if we can come to understand it better. So this is a weekly call-in show that you can call in to speak with Paul and Cyan. They're here every week, and they can either answer your questions or help give their perspective or this perspective of the Zetas, what they might think or say about something. So for those of you who don't want to be on camera, if you want to call in, it's totally fine to just join in on audio, or if you'd prefer, you can always ask questions in the chat. And just a reminder before we start, if you do ask a question in the chat, please type it in all caps so that I can see it easier. Also, if you know someone who might enjoy this conversation, please feel free to share the love, share the show so they can join in with us. And if you're so inclined and would like to please the YouTube gods, please give this show a like and leave a comment down below. Okay, so with that, I think we're ready to get started. Let me bring Paul and Cyan on the show. Whoa! Hey, Paul and Cyan, how are you? So sorry, I brought you in and took you back out.
Good, thanks.
We dematerialized.
Again.
It's amazing. How are you both today?
Good.
We're good.
Yeah,
Good.
sitting in front of a fire.
Yeah, we should have said bonsoir, actually, shouldn't we? We're in France.
That's right, because you're in France, right?
Yeah, we're in France.
World travelers. I get to live vicariously through you. Each week, I never know where you'll be. It's very exciting. Oh, so welcome to everybody that we have here. We got a lot of people here with us today already. So let's talk Zetas. And so today we were talking, like everybody, about this morning. You guys were you popped in on the morning show chat as well. The UAP documents that came out, the FOIA, like the 1500 report, 1500 page report that I think it was the Sun had gotten, and it's kind of been everywhere now, talking about the physical how do I want to put it? The results of interactions with UAPs, the physical kind of effects that people have had. So everybody has been talking about that because, of course, the big bombshell one was reported pregnancies, which who knew you could get pregnant from a UFO, but that's the way they're phrasing it. So that's fascinating. But so you had a little clip. Do you want me to play that now for you? That we
That'll
can
be
start
good.
the
Yeah.
conversation?
It
Okay.
could stimulate a bit of conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, so they sent me this clip so that we can play for you. Let me see.
Of people's firsthand accounts going back 50 years to the 60s, I saw this thing and I had these physical effects. I guess that turns out to be real. Tell us about these effects.
Yeah, Tucker, actually, it's even more than that. This is not, the notion of where, let's say, grandma saw some lights in the backyard. These are military eyewitnesses. In some cases, they're fighter pilots or they're security personnel that have come up close and personal with a UAP, or I guess in the vernacular, UFO. And in some cases, they have sustained some sort of medical trauma, something that can be looked at and quantified and qualified and measured as some sort of biological effect, that they didn't suffer these consequences until they came up close and personal to a UFO. And by the way, let me just say, this isn't pseudoscience. For you, you're absolutely right in your intro. For many years, we've been told, oh, this is silly and whatnot, and this topic is really not to be taken seriously. Look, I was part of the program. I ran the program for a better part of.
Okay, I don't know if we need to hear him blabber on, but so sorry. Did I say that? So it is interesting now. This is kind of being brought mainstream. First of all, I want to say how offensive he is when he says things like, "Now this isn't grandma seeing lights in her backyard," like because the actual everyday experiencer isn't worth talking about. Only the fighter pilots, clearly. But my thoughts aside. What are your thoughts on that when you see something like that?
Well, what are you talking about? The video or
The comments?
Any and all of it.
I have no reaction to anything that people say in regards to that. It's more about that it's just being talked about because Cyan and I both experienced up close the ramifications of contact.
Yeah.
And, I know that people go, well, there's a craft out there somewhere in the sky. But the thing is when you've got very clear and concise contact, you can be burnt. And if they're coming into your house, we've seen when they are with us and we don't get put to sleep or anything like that, that the closer that I let them come to me, the more often I am burnt. So, but that was only for the first few years. Now it doesn't happen. I don't want to get burnt. Other people do, which is bizarre.
I was going to say, other people get burnt now, don't they?
Yeah, you guys get burnt, but I don't. Yeah.
So when we're sitting and the Zetas are communicating through Paul, if somebody sat too close within their sphere, their little ball of energy that they've constructed around Paul to work with, that they will start to become unwell, whether they're actually feeling slightly giddy, nauseous, or dizzy, or like they're going to black out, or they actually get like reddening in the face, like they've been sunburned. So we have to make sure that people don't sit too near.
Yeah. And now that you've talked about that before, and that's just the energy from the beings themselves, correct? Like that's not even the craft.
That's right.
Yeah, well, when the craft have come, I've noticed, I was thinking about it today, that the first craft, when I was younger, it was about 10 meters away. We didn't get, myself and the three other people didn't get any physical ramifications of that. The second major craft landing, when there were the 20 people there, the craft was at least, I don't know, 35 meters away, maybe
slightly more,
maybe even more. And of course, then the interesting thing is that the Zetas then walked around everybody and stopped and put their their fingers, their three fingers on the shoulders. And the thing is that nobody was burnt then either. That was very, very interesting. So I'm not sure what maybe if a craft was powered down and the beings themselves are just sort of walking around, it's possible to not be burnt. But we always find with the Zetas, they have this a residual effect on a person. So the next day you talk to people that are contactees, you talk to people that have got abductees, and they'll say the next day they can feel very unwell. Their immune system may flare up. There could be all these ongoing problems, chronic disorders, and we found out that a lot of when we'd spoken to a lot of these people, we then talked to the Zetas about it, and they were unaware that people were having these issues.
Oh, wow.
And so they went about trying to reverse, and so with Kathleen Martin, they went and reversed her chronic fatigue syndrome. She's come out publicly and said that, and everyone knows Kathleen. There are a lot of people that they've reversed that immunology
Cellular
system,
damage.
cellular damage
Yeah.
as well.
Wow.
So this report that they've got, that the information, it's really just the tip of the iceberg at this point. You talk to people that are being contacted or abducted all the time, and you'll find that there'll be a wide range of symptomatic things that they'll be going through. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we already have someone backstage, so let me bring her on. Hi, Lily. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello.
I
Hi.
showed up, Paul and Cyan.
Hey, Lily,
My
hi.
question is a little bit off topic, but I really did want to ask it because I am curious if any other people have experienced this. I had mentioned to you at one point that I felt like I was being dragged into a trance state with rain at one time in my life. And then a couple of weeks ago, I had an experience that I remembered, and I don't remember all but 1 minute of it. And I was floating I saw the covers coming off of my bed, and I remember floating, standing up in the air, floating. But what I'm curious about is I did not see grays or zetas or aliens that I would recognize. I saw these things that had just zigzag teeth that looked like they were technology rather than aliens, and my foot was feeling something sharp on their mouths, my left foot, and they had no features and they were tan. And I didn't know if anybody's ever seen those before, or if they could have been some kind of robot or something that was, because at first I thought they were entities.
Yeah. So was their mouth just straight, was it?
Their mouth was
zigzag heel.
I should have drawn it. Their mouth was it was like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, the thing is that if it's real and if it's a contact situation, a lot of beings will project imagery in front of themselves so that you can't see who they are. If they're nefarious, if they don't have the best interests at heart, then they're going to project some other imagery in front of them, an image that you can't see past. That's not uncommon, by the way. We see that with the reptilians. They do it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have always been fearful of the grays when I even see them, and have thought that have wondered my whole life if I had been abducted by them. I did see a UFO once. My dad, who's a scientist, saw it and is in complete denial now. It was caught on camera on the news, and I just am trying to figure things out. And I guess my second part of my question is, do you know of any regression therapists who work online to do hypnosis?
I would suggest that you don't get hypnosis in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. You talk to Kathleen Martin and they do all that sort of stuff. I've had a look at the protocol that I use. There's at least 10 hours with Kathleen that a person has to go through before even any information's gained from that process. There's actually other ways to get information. It's not necessarily about going into a hypnotic state. The concern that I've got with all of that process, and a lot of people could disagree with this, to me that's fair enough, is that the subconscious mind has the ability to actually, and even the conscious mind in an altered state under a deepened relaxation process, to fill in the gaps for you. And that's not what you want. You don't want, people don't want that. And that's what Kathleen talks about as well. Another thing is that you could cause an issue to be triggered. And that's another problem, because you've then got to deal with that. And another one is that it could be, once something's taken away, say it gets resolved, generally something else comes to fill its place, right? Then the last one is that if it's a screen memory and you're playing with something that's been applied by extraterrestrials to your consciousness, that it can cause some issues for a person. And I'm not going to go into it too much on YouTube, but why don't you contact us away from this chat session so that we can talk about that?
I mean, is it something I just am? I saw your chat sessions on Etsy, and maybe I will do that. Yeah. Because if this really seems, I would like for it not to happen again. But
and you're like everybody else that's not wanting it to happen. I want to go back to one thing though. That when people go, I'm terrified of the greys, or I fear the greys, or whatever, I want you to understand, all the other people are listening, generally the subconscious reaction to their energy is one of fear, because the physical body has no way of understanding how to react to their energy.
Because they're high vibration, right?
Yeah. And so what happens with a lot of people is that when they say Dezita's talking through me to people, they will have water coming out of their eyes. And we've asked them why that happens to the people in the room. And they'll say it's because the physical body has no way to understand how to manifest the energy. So the physical body just produces water from the eyes, not tears, but water. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, we can chat about that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for answering that question.
Okay. See you later.
What was my lasting impression?
Yes. What was your? Sorry, I was muted. Yes. What was your lasting impression?
My lasting impression. So I felt absolute terror when I was remembering this, but then at the end of it, when I thought about it in meditation, I felt calmer, and like they might not be negative aliens. So that was my last. Thank you. All right. How do I leave?
I think I can take you off. All right. Thank you, Lily, for coming on.
Thank you.
Oh, she figured it out. Okay.
There you go.
There was a question back here too. Hold on. And just a reminder, guys, if you could ask your questions in all caps, that helps a lot so that I can see them easier. But there was one. Hold on. Let me. It's way back. Here we go. Question for guests. Advice on discernment. Spiritual, energy, consciousness, physical, mixes of experiences make it hard. Who, what, and how? Confusing.
Just a small question.
Yeah, just a very small question.
Easy. You can get through that.
you answer that one. Yeah, go on.
Oh, blimey. Where would you start with that? I mean, goodness, we teach this stuff and it takes weeks. I mean... I literally don't even know where to start. It's such a massive question.
What's a good starting place then for someone who's
a person needs to know their own energy first.
That's the beginning.
And if you don't know your own energy, then you cannot tell what's going on around you. So I'll give you an example. Say a spirit's in this room and they want to come and they talk to us and pass a message. for us to know the difference between myself or Cyan and that spirit person, we have to know our own energy, and then that allows us to then understand the difference. Then we can link into that energy, allow the joining process to take place, and then the spirit person could lock the medium's mind, and then you can deliver the information. Okay, so it's actually. I'll say it's simple, but it's hard. I don't know. That's
and it takes time. Don't expect to be able to do it in 5 minutes. You know, it's something that you practice constantly. Always.
This is why people that channel, people that don't train to be mediums, people that do these sorts of things, they need to spend more time evidencing. I'll always come back to that. What's going on? If you really are spending time with your own energy, and then evidencing what's coming through you, then you can build on that. That's okay. But if you're not doing that, then you could be just being used by any entity at all.
Or talking to your own self.
Or talking to yourself. You could have a separation of consciousness.
Subconscious spirits.
Subconscious spirits, we call that. And then, of course, there you go. Where does that all end up? Where does it go?
Yeah.
You know.
That's fascinating too, though. Yeah. Okay, so we have another question too. My flock wants to know, why don't ET take people with learning disabilities? Do you think is that true?
Oh no, I would suggest that's not correct, and that it doesn't matter if people have any type of disability, that they could still be taken. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So what about? I'm going to kind of make this assumption, but I know a lot of people have asked this question too, and I know that there's certainly some caution to it as well. Oh, you know what? I will wait to ask that question because we have another person coming on. Hi, Jess. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Sorry, I'm hearing you twice.
Do you have your show turned on? You might need to mute it.
Welcome to the show. Oh, yes. There we are. Stop now. Yeah, I had an experience that I would love, some feedback on, and see if anyone else has experienced the same thing.
Okay, great.
Basically, I was in bed, I was asleep, and I remember waking up and there was this being next to me. It was really, really tall, glowing, I'd say like white, but sort of see-through and glowing, and had all these colors, like sort of inside, if that makes sense. And I felt as though it was like communicating with me telepathically. But and I was sort of in the stage, when you've just woken up, you know what's going on around you, but you're not quite fully there yet. And then my initial response was, terrified. And then I said to myself, no, you don't need to be scared. There's nothing to be scared of. And then I sort of completely and utterly woke up with the shock, and it was gone. But I said to myself, no, you're going to remember this. You need to remember this. And I sort of forced myself to remember. And I said, you will remember this for the morning. You will remember. And I did remember. But I think had I not have said that to myself, I would have completely forgot about it.
Yeah. My question for you, Jess, is were you what you were waking up as that took place? Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like that you were partially out of body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is not uncommon because all of us leave our bodies at night, when we're sleeping. Yeah. And quite often, there's these other categories people can sort of talk about, such as lucid dreaming and sleep paralysis, all these sorts of things. But another time, this is where you are actually out of body a little bit, and you're in a blended astral environment, but you're also cognitively aware that you're still seeing all this stuff around you, and you can say, yeah, I'm going to remember this. And so, when we say we see these beings, every single thing that's ever been thought exists in the astral as well, and you can be observed by astral beings as well. while you're sleeping. So that really does just sound like that.
Because what happened about 2 months after that, my husband witnessed a very tall white figure. And when I say very tall, I mean we're talking like 8 foot sort of tall, glowing again, walking down the side of the house. And he was absolutely terrified. And my husband's the sort of person, if somebody was walking down the side of the house, he'd go out and see what's going on. But this being, he was so terrified, he would not go out there. He did not want to face whatever it was.
And so was he was awake during the day, and he was awake?
Was fully awake. And no, this was night. This wasn't night. This was about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was fully awake, and it sounds like a very similar thing to what I saw.
And we've heard of encounters in the last 11 months, and we were told this was going to happen, where the astral fabric starts to intertwine with the physical fabric. And so the astral starts to bleed through into the physical environment, and you can be awake and see imagery around you. You can see things that look like small animals walking around. We see this stuff all the time. It's not uncommon. And yes, people are going to start to see more and more things in the physical, but it's up to the person to learn about what's taking place at the moment with disclosure, what's taking place with the expanse of the astral fabric as well. As I said, we were told about this stuff 11 months ago, and it's really exponentially increased for a lot of people.
I'm really glad that you've just told me about that, because we have seen so much. Like, that's just the tip of the iceberg, sort of ET sort of stuff. We've seen some really, just random strange things, and we've been saying to each other, what on earth is this? Like, we've never seen anything like this before. We've both seen, spirits and experienced things like that, but the sort of things that we're seeing are peculiar. They're very, very different.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to become the normal.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
That's okay.
Thank you,
Jess.
for your help.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
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 All right. So we also have Oak waiting to come on as well. Hi, Oak. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Just first of all, thank you, Paul, Cyan, and Lynn for all you do. So thanks, guys. A lot of experiencers report hearing clicking noises when they have entities in their vicinity. But these entities are telepathic, so to describe as them just talking to each other isn't enough. I'm just curious if you have any insight into what maybe this clicking noise that's so well known in the phenomenon could possibly be.
It's them communicating with each other, with just the way they talk when they're out of their normal space, I guess, and their telepathic processes aren't as enhanced as they normally are, and therefore they revert to clicking.
Oh.
And also, though, we know that a lot of mediums who don't work with extraterrestrials also get clicking around them, and so what we find is that as the fabric in the room builds up with it's called a compression method, and once the electrons are compressed, it creates a clicking, a static discharge.
Very common to hear that in
so that is
medium.
super common, and we can't always just jump to one thing or the other. Once again, what's your energy, what's going on, all the questions need to be asked. There needs to be a diagnostic process take place by you, for your experience, so that it provides you with information in regards to where do you go if something changes? What happens if that process now shifts into something else? At least you've got a good ground, a basic process where you can take that and move up from it. But if you don't even know what that baseline is, then of course you're just guessing. So I'll give you an example. Let's say every time you meditate and you experience a certain thing in that meditation, you hear clicking. You can go, okay, look, every time I do a certain type of breath work, every time this happens, that happens. That's your baseline. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. One more question, if you don't mind. I'm curious on we were in a discussion earlier about the timeline shifting, and you seem to have some perspectives on that. I just curious if you'd like to elaborate or kind of talk about what you might know about kind of shifting timelines or
I mean, that's a massive conversation. So if we talk about things like that, we can exist on all timelines asynchronously. That's the first thing. When we are moving in an asynchronous environment on multiple infinite timelines, we're moving at different paces. As we come up to ourselves on the timeline, we can then suffer or experience deja vu because we're ahead of ourselves in an asynchronous reality. Of course, timeline are not linear, so that's the other thing we need to remember. If you do manage to shift onto another timeline, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because I'm not going to feed the problem. That's the first thing. What I would do is if someone came to me and said, I've experienced A, B, C, and D, I would be able to go, okay, you have jumped onto a timeline. But because I haven't said what A, B, C, and D is, that means the person must experience that for themselves. Whereas if I tell everybody what that is, tomorrow I'll have 100 people tell me that they've all done that. And then how do we then diagnose what's actually taking place?
I understand,
yeah.
Any general clue as to why people might experience timeline shifting? Like is this something that can just happen to someone if they didn't intend it to, as well as they can try and do it themselves?
It's possible. I mean, it's possible through fabric distortions. It's possible through direct intention via consciousness if you are in a proper state of creational perspective. And people go, what is that all about? That's a completely different process as well. If a person's a hybrid and they have the ability to manipulate their own timeline, then they may be able to jump. But I'll say to people that think that they do timeline jumping, you've always got to come back. And so if you can get there, you need to be able to work out how to get back. And that's the kicker on how do you get back.
Okay, because there's generally an assumption that a timeline shift is a permanent thing. Okay, I've switched to this. I'm on this timeline now. Not
it actually, you know what? It can't be a permanent thing because you're the wrong vibration. Remember, you're on this timeline because of your specific vibration. If you shift vibration and go to another timeline, you already exist on that timeline. And if you didn't exist because of an asynchronous environment, then what would have to happen is you'd have to be able to hold that in vibration. Now, there's a clue straight away as to why you can't stay there. And there's 100 other things that can happen as well.
Well, that's fascinating. Thank you very much. It's very interesting.
That's okay.
I could throw one last little question in if that's okay.
Why not?
I was in a discussion earlier about greys and how there's different reports of their physical features. And specifically we're talking about hands. How like some reports actually talk about hands with suction cups at the end of their fingertips. Others would have different reports about how many fingers they might have. Some greys are reported not to have thumbs. Others are. I'm just curious about the Zetas specifically, if they, how their hands are compared to maybe other.
They have 3 fingers, and those fingers, the middle one's the long one. But the thing is the finger is able to rotate in the socket, and that's how they, rather than they don't have a thumb, which means they have oppositional capacity for force. They can turn the fingers around and provide oppositional force.
And they have many joints as well.
But remember, that's just one race of a species that has 63 races. And there are so many other races as well. And if you have seen their their hands, the way their hands are designed, you'll notice that they don't have human hands. They don't have opposing thumbs. They don't have anything. So
that is absolutely fascinating. Thank you guys so much. It was very interesting and very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you, Oak, for coming on.
Thanks, Lynn.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye. Okay, so we have Roach. Roach, I'm going to bring you on. I do have a question that was asked a little bit ago, so I want to get to that really quickly. So welcome to the show, Roach. I'm going to ask this question really quickly, and then I'll get to your question for them. Megan had a question a while back. Guys, when you say seeing astral beings will be the normal, do you mean for everyone every day? And is there a
let's hope not. Okay. I mean, I think people would really feel that their life would be a mess if you're seeing things like wet, small furry animals running around and all this sort of thing. No, it's generally just for people that are shifting. Megan.
All right. Good to know. All right. Well, thank you so much for being patient. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I talk to y'all every morning as the I Believe.
I was going to say, I see right behind you, the I Believe podcast. Yeah. Nice. Welcome to the show.
So I got into this. Thank you, Paul. And how do you say your name?
Cyan.
Because I had some experiences that I didn't know what they were in Afghanistan. And when I was serving over there, I thought, I'll just tell you the experience, I guess. So I was leaving a Bible study out of the galley where we eat. And as I was leaving, there's supposed to be no Afghani civilians on a fob after dark, right? So I looked to my left and I saw this tall figure with long hair in a traditional gown that men would wear out there. And I turned around to report it because that's something you would report. Hey, we got a local on base. And we searched the entire base, looked at the camera footage, didn't see nothing. And then I get home, I tell my mom, she's like, "Oh, you saw Jesus," is what she said. And I was like, well, it didn't feel like that. I don't know how that would feel, but I would think you would feel something special if that was the case. And then as I'm home, I started getting these nocturnal panic attacks where I wake up and I got medically retired for this. And I wake up, sleepwalk, and then also having the doctor saying I'm still in a dream state where my brain's halfway in the dream, halfway awake, and I'm confused on what's real and what's not, is what he was saying. And they diagnosed me with PTSD. And then one night I woke up and there was this shadow face just sitting over top of me, didn't say nothing. And I couldn't move. I was frozen. And then when I finally was able to collect my thoughts and everything, nothing was there. And that made me start looking into all these other things you see on my screen here, because I got questions and I haven't been able to find any answers. So I was hoping maybe you guys would know something about what I experienced.
Yeah, that's okay. So my opinion only is that I want to start with talking about near-death experiences. So a lot of times when people experience near-death experiences, and I'm not saying you have, what will happen is that the veil between themselves and spirit realm becomes much, much thinner. Yeah, where's my hands? Much thinner, right? So say it's like this normally, it becomes like that. And so it's easier to interact and see through the veil into spirit realm. Now, if you were in a environment that was dangerous, of course, then the capacity for your doorway that you have closed between you and your point of origin, which is where you've come from, to now manifest into the physical, could actually have diminished. And the capacity for you to be held away from your point of origin means that you are now able to see all of these things. Now, there's ways to evidence all this. You see, this is the thing. This is why we actually came into the public, because we hear all this stuff and we say, that's easy to evidence. Why don't people spend more time evidencing that so that they don't feel so unstable or challenged, or, in lots of these areas? So I would suggest that, if you see a face, that you talk to it. Hello, how are you? And see if you get a response back. If they did, then is there anything you'd like to tell me? Is there any evidence that you could give me? And, I've had situations myself where I woke up when I was younger and there'd be, a person standing in the room, and I'd pull a pillow over the face. I don't want to see this. This is a bit terrifying. But of course, once you realise that they actually can be interacted with, you can get a lot of evidence from them as well. Now, of course, if you can't get any evidence, and like it's happening all the time, then you need to seek some sort of qualified medical sort of support for that.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you.
So I have a quick question, actually, in regards to that, if you don't mind, Roach. Well, the question is for Paul, but so when you said to ask the question, now you talked about, now when you saw this face, were you in that kind of like half asleep, half awake state?
So I wake up with these panic attacks where like I'll be having thoughts that I can rationalize, be like, hey, this ain't legit. But what I'm thinking right now, like I'm the only, for example, I might be having a dream like I'm the only person real on Earth, right? And then you wake up and you're like, well, that don't make sense. But then you're like, as soon as you stop rationalizing it, my heart rate will raise and anxiety will flush over. You know what I mean? And then you rationalize it, you get it down again, and it just keeps flooding back and forth for about 3 hours.
But Roach, think about this. Now, you've just said something that's really important. You've said you're the only real person on Earth. That means that your point of origin entity, right, to me, this is my opinion, your point of origin entity is seeing itself in a human existence, because we all come from somewhere outside of the physical. So what you're saying actually makes total sense.
Oh, I'm glad it makes sense to you.
So, Paul, can you explain for people who aren't maybe familiar with the terminology what you mean by point of origin?
Yeah, so we do a lot of point of origin work with people where we seek out information via the zetas from where the person's come from prior to their existence as a human. And what we find is that it gives them clarity, it gives them focus in regards to why am I here? What is this all about? Why have I come here? Because everything seems like such a disaster generally, but it starts to make sense when you understand where you come from.
Right. Wow.
Interesting. And then the other question that I was going to ask too is, so in that moment, say sometimes, people can be filled with fear, as you were talking about, like when you were younger, Paul, when they see these entities, they don't actually have to speak verbally, do they, to ask the question? Can they speak it telepathically, think it in their mind?
That's it. They can hear.
Yeah.
You are here.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try it.
I
got to give my wife a warning before, though.
That's all you've got to do, right? Just try. And you know what? The first times, 10 times, 20 times you try, you might get nowhere. And, people go, oh, you seem to know answers to questions. Guess what? There was a long time I didn't know things. And I was building knowledge and trying to work out which way to go. I didn't even know what a medium was. You know what I mean? And people go, how's that possible? Yeah, it actually was possible. I didn't know what a medium was. Right. And I didn't seek out help because I didn't know who to go to. And so I guess that meant that I had to go and find my own answers. And in doing so, I came across this massive, broad spectrum of information, all these beings and entities, and found out that it was easy to, through meditation, stillness, and lots of other processes, breath work, energy work, a lot of Reiki, that I could move through different spaces and get information.
Wow. Awesome. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you for letting me ask my question.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on, Rich. It was nice to see you in person.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Okay, so Cindy has a question. It's a two-parter, so that she wrote it out for us. It was only once many years ago. I was in a deep mindful meditation. Suddenly, I felt like I traveled. I was like a fly on the wall. 3 very tall beings, long silver white hair, almost elvish. They noticed me with a stern expression. Then, boop, I was back in my body. Can you comment to this?
Interesting evening so far, isn't it?
It's been an interesting evening, hasn't it? A deep meditative state.
Yeah, and here I'll.
Well, the thing is that when we're in an altered state, there's our. Okay, we'll start that again. You are a being of consciousness. You're living in a physical form. It's not uncommon for people to experience other beings that are beings of consciousness. The problem is we think that the physical is real. And because we think the physical is real, when we encounter something outside of the norm, then it seems like that it's too difficult to believe. That's all I've got to say.
I think also it's worth saying that, you know, these astral experiences, they feel so very real.
Yeah.
You know, I think unless you were experiencing actual contact regularly, you would not be able to tell the difference between a full-on astral experience with somebody else's abduction experience or contact experience to that of an actual experience. I've experienced both, and it's only because I've had the contact I've had that I was able to discern that the astral experience was somebody else's that was existing, that I somehow blended into in that kind of weird half sleep, half awake state. You know, you feel real, physical touch, but it's not happening. It's there's a lot of experience out there to be had in many different ways.
Yeah.
So now is there
you'll learn as much as you're willing to put yourself forward into the woo. Okay. That's a funny word, that. And quite often what holds us back is our fear. You know, any person that's learning to astral travel knows that it's your fear that holds you back. Yeah. And that same premise applies to everything.
So now you talked too about experiencing kind of someone else's experience within the astral. Is there a way to discern whether it's your own experience or someone else's that you're experiencing?
I think with my own experience of that, God, there was only one thing that happened that made me consciously think as it was going on that, hang on, there's something not right about this contact experience that I'm having right now. I mean, it was horrendously terrifying. It was very physical. I had, as far as I was concerned, beings moving my hands, manipulating my body, and, you know, nothing awful or anything, just physically full on holding my feet, pressure on my chest, stuff going on my face, you know. There was one thing that happened that made me go, that's not right. That's just not right. And I was able to somehow snap myself out of it. If it had been an actual experience, I don't believe I would have been able to snap myself out of it, because when it's actually happening, there is no coming back from it until it's over, for a start, you know. But, you know, and also the fear level, you know, I at that point, I was still experiencing a lot of fear when they were there with me physically. And it was bizarre. It was like a half fear, still absolutely flipping mind-numbingly terrifying, and took me 2 or 3 nights to get over. But not as terrifying as the type of experiences that keep you awake for the next month.
Yeah. I think the only way that you can tell about it is the second before you come back. If you're cognizant of the way you travel and the way you wake up, then you can catch yourself to see if you were actually in somebody else's thought reference framework, or whether it was actually taking place.
How so?
How so?
Yeah.
Well, that requires people to actually meditate and do some work.
Well, this is nice. Boo the Beagle says, I find the host and guests very comforting. Y'all help me feel normal. Wonderful.
Oh, good.
It's all normal for us.
It's all normal.
Yeah. So Pinzer had a comment. Wow, I wonder about that a lot if I'm blending into someone else's consciousness, as I have the most random, sudden visions in my head that make no sense to me, but are so detailed. I mean, sudden.
Yeah. I mean, there's the potential there that you're blending with another you on a different timeline. There's the potential that you're actually shifting and heterodyning into a different thought process via the astral. There's also the potential for yourself as a subconscious entity, thinking in a different frame, and then you are telepathically connected to your compartmentalized self. You see, I've just given you 3 examples. So,
now, is it possible to, like, do you have to have that connection with someone to blend into their consciousness? Whether it's
when we're talking astral, no, not at all. No.
Interesting. Okay, let's see. I think we don't have anybody waiting right now, so let me just go back and make sure I didn't miss any questions since there's nobody waiting. Oak has a very good comment. We were talking, I think this is when we were talking about, like, when you see something and you're filled with that kind of fear, still hard not to think and wonder about a billion things when one is faced with the reality of non-human intelligence. So that's a good point too, though. Like, while I'm looking through to see if I missed any questions, how can people address that fear? Because it can be overwhelming for a lot of people when they are faced with that. Like, what's a way they can counter that fear in order to move past and then start to ask questions?
Well, we run free training on Zoom for a lot of people, and sometimes we have 30, 40 people. It's every fortnight, isn't it? Yeah. The training. And at the moment we're teaching how people can contact their guides, their spirit guides. And so we cover a wide range of information in those sessions, and because they're fortnightly mostly, we cover a range from protection, energy, guides, spirit, mental mediumship, psychometry, all the basics that a person would need to know before they can even really start off on the journey. Because it's like I say to you, Lynn, you know what, Lynn, I'm taking you rock climbing. Okay? You know what, I'm not going to show you anything. I'm not going to teach you anything. Here's the rack, and the rack is the, all the bits and pieces. And just have fun with it, and off you go. Well, you'll be dead. You're just going to fall off. That's right. 300 meters up, you're off. And I didn't even teach you how to tie a knot. So the thing is that, what about if I spent a year teaching you how to climb, and then we went up and we did a big rock face, and we got up there. You knew how to do everything. You know how to set up a belay. You know how to set up all your gear. The chance of you actually getting and being successful in doing that is quite high.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's why we do the free training, because we want to support as many people as we can into moving through carefully, using the toolbox of information that they've built up on how to recognize, how to understand, how to strengthen their own abilities as well.
So let's try to give somebody, though, at least like the basic tool in their toolbox. So say they want to attend your thing, which, by the way, I highly recommend. I have gone to the first one. I still have to see the second one. So they want to do that, but they're having experiences right now. What's something they can do? Say it happens tonight. If they can keep in their mind something they can do to kind of calm themselves in the moment, even if it's just a calming technique, what would you recommend?
Well, to tell themselves they won't be harmed.
Yeah. That, like when you're in the thick of those experiences.
Yeah.
It takes what the Zetas call a process is called strength of mind. And that only comes with time. Yeah. It's not a just do this and you'll be okay. Yeah. You're going to have to learn to develop capacity to understand and deal with what's going on around you. If it wasn't that way, then everybody that had contact would just say, "Oh, I've got contact. It's very clear. I know exactly what's going on."
But I think too, the knowledge to say I won't be harmed is helpful to a lot of people, because I think that's usually people's one of their biggest fears, right? Is what's going to happen? What are they going to do to me? And unfortunately, with kind of like the narrative as we started off the show with that's going on right now, there's a lot of fear narrative going on. So I think it's good for people to hear the other side of the coin too, which is you can tell yourself, I'm not going to be harmed.
That's why I said to you today, let's talk about this, because what abductees and contactees have known for years is now going to come out as a conversation. Now, you could ask 100 abductees why they get burnt. They probably wouldn't know. Okay. if they have been. Of course, if you're physical and you walk up to a craft and you get burnt, then you know.
Yeah.
But if people are waking up and certain things are happening to them, things like, waking up with marks on them or, scoop marks or whatever, they need to know why these things are taking place. And it's this phenomenon that we're working through together as a planet requires that we start putting together a logical methodology for dealing with the phenomenon, because the races are watching us react.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're going, well, 99 out of 100 people are just pillow over the head. I don't want to know about it. And there's that one person that they'll then work with because they're not putting the pillow over their head. They're going, you know what? Don't put me to sleep. I actually want to know what's going on.
Now, I've had people, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want to put it out there just in case anyone else is listening, or you may have a different perspective, who have told me about, well, in the past, I've reacted in a fearful state. Say I fought back, or I did this, or, I just freaked out.
We've all done that.
Right. And then they'll say, but I've tried talking to them and they won't talk to me. Is there, in my mind, it's kind of like, well, they've seen you react. And so, and like you would, and I don't mean this to sound demeaning to anybody, but if you were working with an animal, and that animal continually attacked you, and then one time it was calm, like I wouldn't automatically assume that animal was going to be calm all the time. Is it a situation similar to that they kind of have to gain, like you have to gain their trust a little bit if you have lashed out in the past?
I'm going to come at this from a completely off the wall perspective.
Okay.
All right. Just for a change.
Yeah.
So you're being abducted or contacted and you're fighting all the time. We've all done it, hands up. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, I want to talk to you. I agree with what you're saying. But think about it from the being's perspective. What if they don't want to talk to you? What if they don't want to communicate with you? What if the fact that you're actually a hybrid and that's why you're on craft is the only reason that you're there, but you don't remember that your point of origin was extraterrestrial, non-human nature. You've come into the human form. Your race is visiting you. You've been taken to the doctors. You're on craft with Dr. E.T. or whatever, and they're looking at your cellular structure. They're looking at your consciousness. They're looking at how you're coping as a human, as an extraterrestrial in human form. Now, if the only thing I say this to everybody, if you want to really interact with these beings, do it while you're awake. How do you do that? You need to be in stillness. And I don't mean stillness as in, oh, I meditated for 30 minutes today. I think I feel still. No, they'll recognize when your mind is still enough for proper telepathic connection, and they will choose the time when they will create the proper relationship for contact. And this is why, once again, we're going to come back to what started at the beginning of the show, that when there's disclosure, say today, yep, humans say that there's craft, and we'll go, okay, great, there's craft. And the next logical step is, who are the beings that are on this craft? Now, what is everybody going to want to do? They're going to want to talk to these beings. So there's going to be this large din of information, telepathic, talk to us, talk to us, talk to us. They're just going to ignore everybody. They're not interested. They're looking for the beings who are silent, because the beings who are silent are the ones who are listening. You may not have anything that they want to hear.
Interesting. Okay, so Jesse Nicola has a question. How would you know if you're a hybrid?
Yeah. Okay. So there's ways and means of going about to find out if you're a hybrid. Generally, I would suggest that a person would have to spend a lot of time working through that process. There are other methods that we work with people to do that. And of course, some people go and talk to MUFON and get, support through that mechanism. however you do that, it's got to be something that you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But to go to a psychic and for them to pull out a pack of tarot cards
Or
and
ask
say,
10 questions.
so oh, you're a this or you're a that, I would suggest that you're just wasting your time.
Yeah. Now I've noticed some people, they have a very strong affinity for, say, one race or another, and then they usually assume that they're a hybrid. Is that, can that be the case, or is that
fine? Yep, do that. That's great. And then
Yeah.
tell me what the next step after that is.
Evidence?
Yeah, there you go.
I've been listening.
You know me well. So you have an affinity to a specific race. You need to seek evidence of that. Now, if the race that you are from, if you are from them, well, then of course what's going to happen is that race will probably come to you. Now, what we don't want is a situation where you start hearing them talking to you telepathically, unless you then, the first thing that comes out of your mind to them is, I'm going to write this down. You're going to tell me some things that you're going to do. We're going to put a date next to them when it's going to be done. And don't come back to me until you've done those things. Because if you don't evidence the mind-to-mind contact, what's going to happen is you're just going to get everything coming to you, even spirits.
Yeah. Interesting. And I know, like, I think you and I have talked about this before, but I think some people might feel like, is that being rude to them? Is that going to
No.
put them off if you're like, okay, you need to prove yourself to me?
No.
They expect it.
If this is
They
the whole
really
problem,
do.
we see this all the time. I've been told you can't challenge your guides, and I say yes, you can. And if you don't, you're not doing the right thing by your guides.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They want their person to be challenging them. It shows that their person is using common sense.
Let's say that, Lynn, you're going to be a terrific healer using your spirit guide.
Okay.
And the guide sort of tried to talk to you, but you haven't evidenced them. And then, sort of, you don't really go anywhere with your abilities, and the guide feels like they're wasting their time. Well, you could have actually spent some time evidencing your guide and really working through that contact and really become, a really good healer with the spirit person. But because you didn't do that, you got taken in by the woo. You believed anything and you believed everything that you read. And you sort of also believe some of the screen memories you've been given, and now you become less effective, not ineffective, but less effective than you could have been as a person working strongly with their guide. And that's why we do the free Zoom teaching for people, so that we can talk to them about energy protection, understanding your own energy, just a lot of the things that we're talking about at the moment.
Yeah. Absolutely. I put this in the chat, but James, I see you waiting to come in, but you have to have at least your audio connected. It's telling me none of your devices are connected. So if you don't want to do video, that's totally fine, but just make sure your audio is connected, because I can't add you in otherwise. So, okay, Simon, hope you're feeling better. Simon has a headache. Well, thanks, Jeff. We're glad you're enjoying it. So, okay, this is an interesting thought that OCAD. It's not necessarily a question, but I'm a very busy ADHD mind, but I do have a lot of contact with beings, but they communicate with physical displays. I so want to talk to them in more detail, but worry I will never will with this ADHD. So how could someone...
ADHD is got nothing to do with contact. Okay. How do I know? Because I've got ADHD. There you go. So I'm going to say this once again. Forget about what's going on in your mind. You have to put down the parameters for contact. Now, Oak, you're saying you've got lots of contact. Right. What is your contact protocol for those beings? What rules have you in place for them to speak or interact with you? Because if you've got none, then of course there is no expectation from them that you know what you're doing.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so sorry. I'm like just
Yeah, that's right.
interesting. Sometimes when I connect, it tells no audio cam, but then when I get in, I unmute an audio. It's not letting me. So James, if you can hear me, you might need to go out and try coming back in because it's not going to let me add you in.
What about, can James just type, or it doesn't work?
James, if you have a question, you can always just type it either in. If you can see the private chat on the side, I can see that, or you can post it in the public chat. Either one. If you're not able to get it connected, so we can definitely help answer.
Oak is saying ADHD versus being still, but I'm also talking about there are a range of methods for contact. I talk about stillness as being one where they're going to speak to you because they're moving into a still environment. It's like this. You're sitting on the side of a lake and you're looking at the surface of the lake and it's absolutely still. When you look into the surface, you can see underneath, you can see what's going on under the surface of the water because the surface is still, right? That's where extraterrestrials and other beings like to come. It's their preferred method for contact is stillness because they can then accurately read the contactee because of their own stillness. But if they also know, and they know your mind quite well, if they know that your mind isn't in stillness, then they will create other avenues for contact. But it's then up to you to determine what is contact for you, what is contact for them. You'll then need to verify that with them through them evidencing themselves to you once again. This is why the whole ufology, extraterrestrial contact is in such disarray all over the place, because people think that extraterrestrials are going to contact humans on humans say so. It's not going to happen. And I'll stand by that. It's not going to happen. You'll see the people that actually have proper cognizant contact are the ones that have worked meditating and built parameters around their contact, because the ET know that they're not going to be hit with a barrage of whole lots of different information and the mind going through all over the place.
Now, when you say like a protocol, can you give an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah. So let's say that you're going to use an induction methodology, and I'm going to talk about, say, spirits, right? So you say that every Wednesday at 7 o'clock to the spirit people, your guide, I'm going to sit at 7 o'clock and I'm going to sit for 40 minutes and that's my time with you. See, straight away the spirit person goes, hey, this person's going to be serious. They're actually going to give me some time. Now, may not hear anything for the first 100 times you sit, but the 101st time you sit, you may get some sort of energetic contact. But you see, you've set the groundwork there. Yeah. The second thing that you could do is you could say, okay, I'm going to teach myself one breathing methodology 1 month, a second breathing methodology a second month, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to learn all about my breathing processes, my energetic processes. How do I expand? How do I sense and feel energy? We teach all this once again in the Zoom groups. And of course, that then gives the guides a response to you. They know that you're going to try these different breathing methodologies. And the guide may go to themselves, you know what? I think that if they do this type of breathing, and we don't know when it's going to happen, we may be able to work out what the patterns of energy are around the person. And they wait for you to build the correct breathing processes. Cyan knows this as well. And next thing you know, you've got contact with spirit people, right? But it's like a combination lock. They've got to work out with you which to get those tumblers in sync. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Now, I've also heard other people say, be careful if you're asking for contact. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we see this all the time, and people go, I just asked for contact, and next thing you know, I was in all sorts of problems, and that's where they probably end up coming to see us. But the thing is we say to them, well, what did you do? How did you do it? And this is the big mistake that a lot of people make. They incorrectly identify energy. They make assumptions about energy. They mix up their dream contact with their waking states. They mix up spirit contact with ET contact because they see an orb and they go, oh, it must be extraterrestrials. And the spirit's going, it's not, I'm not an ET. What are you talking about? And because, of all those different reasons, there is a really good reason to not just start, you're not going to walk into a haunted house and well, some people do, and say, I'm here. If you've got anything you want to tell me, here's my device. I'm doing EVP.
Always works out really well on those programs.
It never seems to work out too well. I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, that actually brings me to another question too that I had that a lot of people have asked, which is like, why is it so? Let's use the example that you talked about with developing a protocol. So you say I'm going to sit here for 40 minutes every Wednesday at 7 p.m., whatever it is you decide to do, and you said the first 100 times, nothing may happen, and then it will. But then there are those people where the first time, the second time they do it, something happens.
Yeah.
Why is it that some people so easily have contact and others have to work a little harder to have that contact?
Well, it's not that they have, this is the thing, it's not that they have contact, they get what's called a show. So when in the past with physical mediums, and we'll talk about physical mediumship now, mediums like Leslie Flint, you'd have to give me some names, Helen Duncan, Minnie Harrison, John Campbell Sloan. When they first sat and closed their eyes, they didn't know anything, and they were in a group of people, and bang, the spirit people came through and spoke, and that was great. And then nothing ever happened for years after that. Okay, Leslie would have been one of those people as well. And so what happens is they'll give you an indication of their ability to be able to work with you. When I first started working as a medium, we had a spirit person talk in the room in their own voice. It was floating around, and we never had it again after that.
No, not until last year.
Well, not until last year. But anyway, all I'm saying is that they give you an indication of your ability to develop to, and where am I? So this is where you are now, right? And with the other hand over there. So this is where you could be. So what we'll do is we'll show you what you can do in 10 years' time. Yeah, you have to sit in every single chair, every single time, until you develop the right breathing protocols, the energetic protocols, the ability to exude the correct chemical substances, all these things. And I would suggest that if a person does get contact on their second time, that the first thing that they should be doing is evidencing that contact to stop themselves from being conned by other earthbound spirits or negative entities or whatever. Yeah.
So that actually makes me wonder. So if you say, okay, now I guess you could do like to try to differentiate if it's a spirit or an ET. I suppose to have the evidence, you could make it somehow more ET specific. Like how would you differentiate with evidence whether it's a spirit or an ET?
Yeah, well, you see, this is a bit of a murky area, like, so let's say that you get somebody that comes and says to you that they're an extraterrestrial, right? The first question I'm going to have is, are you three-dimensional? Oh, yeah, I've got a three-dimensional body, but I've got a fifth-dimensional consciousness. Great. Well, I'll see you next week in a craft, or can you tell me when you're going to bring a craft? And don't bother coming back until you do. Right? Because you've got to think about it. Your time that's here is limited. Even if you live to be 100, it's only 100 years. Do you really want to spend the next 40 years of your life listening to a lying spirit?
So what if they say, no, I don't have a three-dimensional body? Then what?
Yep, then you've got to say, well, then why are you coming here? What do you want to do? And if they go, well, I've come here because I want to heal the planet, I want to support humanity, I want to do all of the lovely, we call them the ping words, lots of ping words, buzzwords, all the buzzwords that you get when people are channeling, then you've got to say, well, okay, well, let's see what comes out from that, because First year, lots of love and light and lots of great words and supporting and all that. And the second year, the fifth year, the 10th year.
And they're still telling you every time, it's not quite the right energetic environment for us to fully materialize. Of course, we can, but you're not ready yet. You know, 10 years down the line, you're not quite ready yet, you know, but keep going. And it goes on and on and on.
And that's
it never
why,
goes anywhere.
That's right. And that's why we said in the beginning, proper spirits will give a show of what a medium is capable of. They'll either give independent direct voice, or they'll levitate something. They'll create an apport from spirit realm into the physical as well. I have to laugh because there's actually a spirit just there.
They've been shaking my chair for the last 10
giving
minutes.
us
Oh, really?
the whole time.
Feels
And
like
every
my
time we
chair's
talk
going
about
boom,
spirits,
boom,
they're
boom,
just flashing up next to us all the time.
You know,
So funny. Maybe they have something they got to say. They want to add to the conversation.
Very old house.
This place is like 500 years old. So anyway, oh look, you know, it's up. Look, you know what? Everybody just do whatever you want to do. We don't tell anybody what to do. We just say what we do. If people want to waste their time, it's your time. Waste it as much as you want. Have fun with it.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know. It's good information to know, though, how to like differentiate, you know, by evidence. Because I think most people don't even think about that, especially in this community, you know, like or in the paranormal community. I think the same thing happens. And even though I know there's a lot of overlap there, just to differentiate the two a little bit, just for conversation's sake. You know,
here's something. What about C5? You get a group of people, they're all outside. And I think we talked about this in the last show. They see a flash of light up in the sky out there, you know, it could be 10 million light years away, and that they say they've got contact. Next thing you know, half of them are channeling, right? Now, what does that mean? Why are they channeling? Well, what is coming through those people? Was there ever any potential for those people to channel anyway? Or did they create a subconscious construct around themselves and then start channeling from within their own self? You see, the extraterrestrials see this behavior and they go, no, this just no. And we need for you to take this seriously, because we're going to take you, the whole planet, into a community of other races. And if people don't understand how to create contact correctly, or understand what a protocol actually performs, or the fact that you could have a consensus reality being formed by the group of people that are in there, and they're creating the phenomenon themselves, then of course the races have no way of knowing how to really interact with you as an individual.
Yes.
Common sense.
Okay, so we don't have any questions anymore, but to kind of concisely end this, so set the protocol that works for you and be patient, and then they will come in when they are ready, if they are ever ready. So that's the starting point for the human, is to decide the protocol, set the protocol, stick with the protocol. And then when the ET, if or when they're ready, then they come in, and then you move on to the evidencing. Correct?
Yeah. Because if you don't give some sort of framework for this, you'll just be going down rabbit holes. It's end of story.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people are at too. So I think it's great that you're kind of able to provide this very like concrete steps to take, you know, and I think a lot of people need that, and that's helpful.
One thing that we never do is we don't if we listen to something, we go, look, that sounds interesting. And then we just put it back up in the library, you know, where it belongs. It's in the shelf. And, you know, if something comes of it, it does.
Yeah.
But with our contact and the books, the Primer of the Zeta Race, the Zeta Interviews, the Zeta Mind, all those books are books that have been formed from years and years of contact.
Yes.
And a lot of the information has been challenged by scientists, by people. The Zetas have, you know, sort of given a lot of evidence to people as well. So, you know, you can imagine that information was coming through you. You would want to know that you weren't being led astray, or that you had actually evidenced the information yourself.
Absolutely. And just FYI, everyone, if you haven't gone there yet, the link to, because some of the books, I know the Zeta Primer and the interviews are both free to download.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the link to that is down in the description below to go check that out if you want to. And then also, before we end, so if someone is interested in hearing about the courses you offer or any of those things, where should they go? To the website, or should they go to the Facebook group? What's the best place to go?
Go to the website for the for all of it, really. On the website, there's a tab called Practical Metaphysics, and that will take you to the Zoom groups. And then we've also got stuff via Etsy, or if you contact us privately, for people that would rather work one-to-one.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's all on the website.
Okay.
I can see a question down the bottom. What's it say?
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Pinzer says, so because I can't settle on one thing, I'll never have ET contact. Even questioning what I've experienced paranormal-wise when I didn't used to as much, maybe is why I don't feel much lately. I think that
no, it's not. This is the thing. So I've been talking about this with a few other people in the last few days. Extraterrestrial contact creates paranormal contact, a paranormal association. It creates that distorts the fabric of your reality, and in doing so, you then end up with a whole lot of other things happening around you. Whereas when spirit people come, they don't distort the fabric that it brings extraterrestrials to you. So the first thing you got to work out is this spirit contact or is this ET contact? If it's ET contact, then you're going to have a much more difficult time working out the phenomenon that's going on around you, because now the energy has shifted, there's a distortion, and you've also got the activity of the astral coming in as well as spirit, as well as your own psychokinetic abilities, developing these sorts of things. It's actually it's a bit messy.
Yeah, it can take a long time to work out what's going on around a person. Yeah, and it's never a black and white answer, and everybody's different.
Yeah,
you can't say this. Like in the class, obviously we say, look, here's a small methodology for doing something, but everybody's different, and we have to talk to the person and say, well, what is it that you've tried? What are you doing? Where do you see yourself going with this? Like, do you only want to spend 5 minutes a day, or do you want to spend the rest of your life doing this?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Oh, there's one. Let's see. One more question. Jesse says, is it possible to accidentally connect with ET when trying to connect with spirit?
I don't believe so. I think that it's the opposite. It's actually easier to connect with the spirit who tells you that they're an extraterrestrial when they're not.
Yeah, there's plenty of spirits out there that like to have a laugh with people.
They have a laugh. Yeah, I'm an ET. I'm from.
Seen it many times.
Planet whatever, and the spirits are laughing, going, "This is wonderful," and these people believe it. This is great.
That's hilarious. It's not hilarious for us, but it's hilarious thinking about it from their perspective.
Imagine, Lynn, so when you pass over, you're hanging around and you see someone sitting there and they're going, "Oh, can anybody hear me?" And you go, "You know what? I'm going to pretend." You got a good sense of humor. I'm going to pretend to be an ET. Yes, I'm from the planet Zod.
Yeah.
And the person goes, I've heard them talking, and you're like, the thing is, as Sion and I can see spirits, so we'll watch people channeling, and the person thinks they're channeling an extraterrestrials, and see the spirit person standing behind them talking through them.
Or the other way around.
Do you ever feel like, I feel so bad, like I wish I could just tell this person what's actually happening?
Oh no, we actually have. We've actually said, well, no, we don't talk to we talk to the spirit. We say, listen, enough of that. Come on. We can see you now, and do you want to actually tell the truth about yourself? So,
yeah. And there's a spirit trolls, just what we need.
You wouldn't believe how many spirit trolls there are.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. All right, guys. Well, I think we have come to the end of our time today. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation today. And thank you to everyone who's come on. It's been so nice to have everyone on.
Good questions today.
Yeah. Really good questions. So we will be back here next week, next Wednesday, and go check out their website. I think Diesel Girl said she's checking it out right now. So yeah, go check out the website, go check out the books. They have the workshops. There's all kinds of stuff. So definitely go check everything out. And thank you guys so much for being here with us again. And it's so cool seeing you in a new location every single time almost.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, you guys have a great night, and everyone else have a great night as well. All right. Let me get this going. Thank you so much, guys. All right. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. I will see you back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. for the morning show. Bye-bye.